Yes.
Oh, that's good enough. They can lead us in the pledge.
The Belltown of America, Yoga, Evan Brothers. So all the bells like presidential inauguration stuff. Those are big.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Wethersfield Board of Education. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. Happy New Year. We are in the Town Hall chambers. Ellen, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Carey. Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Drew?
Here.
Mrs. DeRoberts?
Here.
Mrs. Granato? Present. Mr. Healy? Mr. Lacavoli?
Here.
Dr. Regan Lefebvre? Mr. Riley?
Here.
Vice Chair, Mr. Cassio?
Happy New Year and present.
Chairman, Mr. Carey?
Here.
And Wethersfield High School Student Representative, Mr. Ryan Fazina. All present.
Thank you. If we could stand for the pledge and have the math interventionist team lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Emmett, student staff recognition.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Carey. Good evening, everyone. I start off with some good news. The Wethersfield Public Schools was recently awarded a innovation grant from the state of Connecticut, and I'd like, if I could please, to have our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Sally Stoli, come forward for a brief presentation.
Didn't work. Oh, there it is. Must be that new light bulb.
It's coming up.
It's that new light bulb we got finally.
Well, good evening, and yes, I'm excited to be here with great news this evening. We have applied for the Connecticut State Department of Education ESSER Innovation Grant that is funding innovative after-school programs at the middle school. So I want to first start with thanking our many partners. I truly believe we were awarded this grant because of the power of our partnerships. This was a competitive grant, so you were not guaranteed funds. And the power of our innovative program has to do with the partners within our community around the table. So myself, Margaret Zakay, Kim Bobbin, Eric Texera, Caroline Fazina, Judy Keene, and Officer Manny Silva, and our Chief of Police were integral parts of creating MOUs, writing the grant, and it is no small task, as many of you know, to write an innovative competitive grant. So I thank all the partners that have been around the table and will continue to be around the table as part of our steering committee. So as Mr. Emmett mentioned, we were awarded $204,472. The grant from Connecticut State Department of Education, it will allow underserved communities to address academic, social, emotional, mental health needs of students, especially for those who have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. It will be offering after-school programming for this school year. We hope to start around February 1st and all of next year, and this comes out of our American Rescue Funds at the state level. So what is the need? Why was the middle school funded, and what did our data tell us? So I think I'm going to share with you something that's not new to you, but it's a really pivotal reminder. Over the past 2 years, middle school students have demonstrated alarming behaviors that demonstrate how they have been negatively impacted by the pandemic and point to the need for interventionist support. Students report experiencing increased isolation and a loss of connection to their friends, their school, and their community. Attendance data shows increased school avoidance, Multiple indicators highlight academic concerns and learning loss. Educators, parents, and caregivers report increased incidents of self-harm, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations, and substance abuse. In addition, police have noted an increase in the frequency of calls to help manage student behaviors outside of school. New and innovative program for after-school programming at Silas Deane Middle School will provide an opportunity for our students most at risk to receive academic and social emotional support they need. The benefit of this program will be to develop supporting relationships with adults. Access to a therapeutic counselor will strengthen their ability to navigate the transitional phase of adolescence and to help to mitigate the negative impacts of the COVID pandemic. I have to share that we looked at our data and collected our data from multiple sources, academic, social, emotional, from their race survey. And when we were awarded the grant several months later, I went back to review the data based upon the need of our middle school. And it is still compelling to me when I reread the statistics that I already know and that we've written about, that we can't underestimate the long-term impacts of COVID and the different world we live in, especially on our adolescents. Not to say that all levels and all ages of our community have been impacted by COVID, but our data points us towards our adolescents. So key components of the program. If you take a look at these, what do you think is the most important key component? A couple people. What do you think would be the most key component for adolescents?
Mental health.
Mental health, very much high on the list. Relationships, yeah. Well, all these are key components of the program, of high quality, engaging, fun after-school program, but we really believe that relationships and mental health support will really be an umbrella for much of the work we do around academic support, physical activity, community building, hands-on learning, and service learning. There will be 4 staff on site based upon the grant. We will have a site coordinator. That might be 1 or 2 people could share that over days. We will have a teacher. Some days we'll have a STEM teacher, science, technology, engineering, or math. And 2 other days we'll have a humanities, more of an English social studies focus. Our Wethersfield Police Department will be doing physical activity, kind of intramural style, soccer, basketball, different physical activity with the students, and we will also have a licensed clinician on site. So every day we will have 2 groups of 30 students come twice a week, and we will have 4 staff members with 30 students, which is a great low student adult to student ratio. So here's some of the goals and objectives of our program. I'll just read a couple of them. Obviously, to increase attendance. As we know from our attendance data, our middle school had the highest chronic absentee rate in our district. We want to really touch and serve students that typically don't attend after-school programs. With the Keene after-school being there around the table, we have a large group of students that access after-school clubs and activities. But we also have a large population that doesn't typically get involved. So there will be late bus transportation. We really want to target and invite students that typically don't come to after-school programs. Academic support, students will be referred for mental health or social emotional support and strategies. We'll be providing high interest programs to engage students in critical thinking and increase student agency. We really want to build those relationships so we have a network both within the school with adults, but also within our community, so they have, and within each other with their peers. Obviously increase our graduation rate, and that relationship people is key. Another key component that our family engagement team is involved in is engage parents as partners. So we'll be having family engagement dinners, topics on topics such as substance abuse, internet safety, and other topics to engage parents and families into that work together, along with, of course, some fun field trips. And again, just to kind of wrap up, how do we do all this work? It sounds exciting after school. I really believe the power in this grant is through the multiple partnerships of those listed here, and also other community organizations we hope to bring in to be part of that, high engaging learning opportunities for our students after school to make learning exciting, but also teach them about real life. So a little bit about the grant that we hope to have up and running in the next month or so.
Thank you, Ms. Stoli. Before I turn it over to the board for questions, I have a question. You said 2 groups of 30 students. Will they be selected, or will they be signing up to attend the program?
They will be referred through the school. So they will be identified through different processes within the school based upon attendance data, academic achievement data, social emotional screeners, and other supports. And again, their ability or their history of accessing after-school programs. Part of this innovation grant is to bring in other people, students that typically don't attend after-school programs.
Excellent. So we do have data. We'll be keeping track to see the success of the program?
Yes, and we have, actually, the grant asked us to increase a lot of hours for data tracking, so we'll be also collecting data about the success of the program.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing about that. Thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah.
Any other board members with questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Thinking about these students who don't usually get involved with after-school and targeting them, I think that, well, hopefully being invited will be motivation for them to come. But do you have any other strategy for trying to get students who don't normally participate to participate in this?
So that is actually on our next steering committee meeting tomorrow to talk about strategies. We're starting on marketing materials and talking about how we approach parents and approach students and the messaging around, right? This isn't just more school. This isn't state school longer. This is about, engaging, fun, learning. They're going to be learning, but in that engaging piece and doing some self-guided work also. So that is definitely a topic that we're discussing and talking about how we approach it, especially being a brand new program, right? We have a flyer, we're going to have some marketing materials that we have started to develop, but what is the message we want to send to families, and how can we work together, and how's that a benefit to your child and your family, and how do we work together? Yeah, I think my hope is that because our mental health providers in our community are overbooked, right, and often our students have to wait to get appointments, that will be part of, because we'll have a licensed clinician part of the program, will be attractive for some of our families.
Thank you, Ms. Drew.
I have 2 questions. One, with the numbers, is it going to be split evenly, 37th graders, 38th graders, or do you find that one of the grades needs more work than the other? And then 2, is it going to be, is it going to be the same kids 5 days a week, or are you going to be like 2 days a week for this group, 2 days a week for that group?
Yeah, great questions. So the programs will be Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. So it'll be 2 days for 30 students, so that's a total of 60. I lost your other question.
The split between 7th and 8th grade
Oh,
students.
yes. So we don't have a preconceived number right now. The school is starting to look at their students, look at their data, and start to make some recommendations as they start thinking about those numbers. So it may not be a split. I think we're going to have students from both grades, but we've started talking about that. Might one date be more 7th, 8th? Will they be combined? Those are some of the logistics we're working through in developing the program.
I just didn't know if based upon your, data, you're finding that there's more of an issue with 7th grade versus 8th grade,
Yeah.
so.
I think, 8th grade won't be there next year, so I think there may be more 8th grade initially for the first year, but I think we go where our data brings us and to serve our population. I think it's exciting, though, as we look to hire teachers and coordinators for the program, right? It's kind of like a blank canvas. While we have a roadmap and a monthly calendar, it really is an exciting program to kind of put together with student voice and our staff, right? Working together through the partners to create opportunities for students. So I look forward to see what they're doing.
Program. I'm so excited for this. I wish that my middle schooler had this, so,
Yeah.
but I think that all the future kids, I think it'll really benefit them, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members with questions? Yes, Ms. Granato.
Just one question as you were talking too, as this is at its infancy, any chance for a wellness center in the middle school? Would that be part of this?
I wish. Strict criteria after school. I asked about summer program, and they said no. So definitely part of the after-school bucket of funds, only for this.
I would expect to see the wellness center proposal for the middle school in the upcoming budget proposal.
Great. It's just, it was so successful in the high school.
Absolutely.
You know, it should always be out there as a recommendation. Great.
Mr. Cassio.
Yes, thank you for putting this together, Sally, with your group. Two questions. Is this one and done? In other words, is this grant a one-year grant?
1.5. The remainder of this year and next year.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is somewhat of a program that we have to look forward to on upcoming budgets. If it's a success, and we want to continue to work on this, once we start something, you know, it's kind of hard to get rid of something. So that's another budget maker that we have to be aware of. And then, are there other communities that got this grant as well?
There are. I'm not recalling exactly how many. It was a competitive grant, so there were other communities. We can provide that in your Friday packet if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if you can bounce some thoughts and ideas off the other communities that, you know, have received it as well.
Yeah.
John, I can speak to that. Actually, the list was in a prior Friday update. I know there were some public schools. I know Middletown got one. There were actually some Boys and Girls Clubs that got funding as well. We'll include the list again in this week's Friday update. And Sally, if you could, please, you know, some people at home are probably asking the question, why are we starting it now? Why in January? So and we know we did a lot of this work back last summer. So can you talk a little bit about the timeline?
Yeah, we started writing this August, September, with the expectation we'd know in October and start November 1st. The State Department notified us at the very end of December, so it took them several months beyond their timeline to review grants and award grants. So that's why we're not starting until February 1st, based upon the award of the grant mid-year, unfortunately, because it would have been great to start in November, but we'll be happy to start in February.
Thank you. Any other board members? Yes, Mr. Riley.
Thanks so much, Sally, and for everyone else responsible for putting this program together. It looks great. I just wanted to ask you, how did you become aware that this grant was available to be applied for?
Yeah, so the RFP, or the grant proposal, was released via electronic. And actually, I saw it, but Caroline Fazina from the Keene After School also saw it. So I think our emails on the same day kind of hit our inboxes in opposite directions. And so we pulled a group and said, well, what do you think? You know, they have their expertise in after-school funding and, right, the area. And so, again, as we brought the partners together, it kind of came to fruition. We probably met 5 or 6 times to do all the MOUs. We have about a 20-page report, the budget. It was no small feat. But I'll tell you that we have a great team of, everybody came to the table with different things to put it together, and we, you know, met weekly and mapped out our to-do list. It was an incredibly busy time of year of back to school, right? We were saying, oh my gosh, why are we doing this now? But it paid off, and it's exciting to have a competitive grant, knowing that we were funded in that competitive pool. So,
Thank you for your efforts and the teams.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Stoley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Moving on to approval of board minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the December 13th, 2022 meeting?
So,
I have a correction? Okay.
We'll get there.
so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Cassio, your correction.
Yes, on page 5 of the minutes, in a paragraph that indicated Mr. Cassio also concurred with the comments made by, I did not concur with the comments made by Dr. Reagan Lafeve. I just basically indicated that we hope that something could possibly, there's some time for their daughter, but I did not concur with them. I didn't concur with her comments at all. So I would like that possibly changed.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing none with a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
I abstain.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Public comment, anyone in the public wishing to make comment, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes. Seeing no public comment is closed. Communications, Mr. Emmett.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Good evening again, everyone. Just want to give you an update with regard to the COVID numbers, RSV, and flu. The district has seen the COVID numbers rise on the backside of our holiday break. However, we have seen the RSV and flu numbers continue to trend downward, and this data comes to us from the Central Connecticut Health District. The remaining test kits that we've had in stock in district will expire this month. The vast majority of them have been distributed already. Nursing Supervisor Elda Marcelinas sent out a communication with information for families to get free test kits from the CDC. The transmission rate for COVID has reached a high level in Hartford County. Health officials do recommend masking when indoors during times of high transmission. The district does not mandate this. However, we do have masks available, so if parents need them, do not hesitate to ask your school nurse. I'm also very pleased to report that DARE has made a triumphant return to the Wethersfield Public Schools after a hiatus for staffing and a hiatus for the COVID pandemic. So I'm very proud to report I had the opportunity yesterday to attend the DARE graduation with Officer Abby over at Webb Elementary School for our 5th graders. Tomorrow morning I will be attending the DARE graduation ceremony for Highcrest. The remaining 3 elementary schools will have DARE instruction coming up in the spring and graduations just prior to the end of the school year. So students were very excited and it was great. I had a lot of opportunity to talk with parents yesterday. They are thrilled to have the program back. So, and again, a heartfelt thank you to Officer Abby. This was her first year as DARE officer and she has done remarkable work. What I like also is not only Officer Abby there at the school for DARE, she is very visible. Happened to visit Webb one afternoon and went to the cafeteria and she was in chatting with the 1st graders. So she's been a very visible presence and that's exactly with our partnership with the Wethersfield Police Department what we want. We want visible police presence, we want partners, and that's exactly what the WPD is. So very happy to report on that. A couple of other items this evening. The annual Superintendent's Award ceremony will take place this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. in the Wethersfield High School auditorium. If you are able to attend, we would love to have you there. We're going to be recognizing our parents, students, and staff members who go above and beyond to make our schools great places to be. I'd like to let everyone know also that we are in the process of budget development for the 2023-2024 school year. Members of the Finance and Operations Committee will be working this month to finalize budget workshop dates that will be held during the month of February. And I'd also like to let everyone know that the annual State of the Town breakfast meeting will take place on January 18th, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. at the Keeney Center Ballroom. Tickets are $25. It is, again, 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And again, that'll be an opportunity for me to share with the community everything that's going on within the Wethersfield Public Schools. So we certainly look forward to that. The district equity team met today. We focused our work in groups, so we had representatives from all of our schools talking about ways we can engage parents and work that we can do moving forward to ensure that all of our students have equitable outcomes. We do have the monthly Social Justice Coalition meeting coming up next Thursday. That's a hybrid meeting from 5:30 to 7. It's either head to Wethersfield High School or you can catch it via Zoom. The steering committee will be meeting tomorrow morning to plan for that upcoming meeting. And with that, that's communications this evening. Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett. Moving on to action items. Do we have a motion to approve the policy updates?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, any questions or comments? Mr. Emmett?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Carey. These policy updates come from our legal services provider, Shipman and Goodwin. These are policies that have been updated through legislation. The Policy and Planning Committee has vetted these. You saw these for a first read back in December. And we recommend approval of these so that we can upload these into our policy manual.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to reports and discussions. Mr. Emmett, the math intervention presentation.
Yes, thank you. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome to the podium our Wethersfield Public Schools math interventionists. These professionals have done remarkable work in addressing the learning gaps that we've seen through the COVID pandemic. So it gives me great pleasure to present to you our math interventionists. Sally.
Yeah, so let me start off with introductions. We have Don Campbell, Elementary Instructional Supervisor, Melissa Johnston, Highcrest Math Interventionist, Melissa Morello from Silas, Deane, Dee Dee Mahoney from Charles Wright, Dr. Christina Slayton, our Secondary Instructional Supervisor, and in our audience for moral support, we have Amy Carlson from Webb, and Michael Macaluso as part of our amazing math interventionist team. So we're here to talk a little bit about the powerful work that they're doing to work on student achievement. But I want to start by talking about the number one most important factor for student learning is having high quality teachers in the classroom. Our math interventionist team, you're going to hear today a little bit about how they're coaching students, working on improving outcomes for students, working directly with students, working with tutors. You'll hear all about that. I won't go into their presentation, but we did this investment in our 7 math interventionists because we know improving outcomes for students happens in the classroom on a daily basis, and these highly skilled educators are dedicated to do that work on a daily basis. Our commitment to math interventionists really speaks to our 3 district priorities. Priority 1 being empathy. They are part of the instructional leadership team. They're teacher leaders that help build a positive, empathetic, and safe community and increase effective communication. They are the definition of our teacher leaders. Obviously, achievement is their core to their work. You'll hear about that today during the presentation. And they also are deeply involved in our work around our achievement gap and our learning gap around equity and the work we do as a district. So I am going to turn it over to the team for the presentation. I think, Dawn, you're up.
Good evening. Again, I'm Dawn Campbell. I'm the Instructional Supervisor for Elementary Curriculum. The math interventionists are important members of the scientifically research-based intervention team and are therefore involved in every part of our multi-tiered system of support process. Tonight, a few of these talented professionals will share with you about the work that they're doing. With the addition of this role, each building now has certified math support professionals in all schools 5 days a week. No more sharing of staff across buildings or disciplines at the elementary level, and the secondary schools for the first time have a position similar to the reading consultants, but focused on math. Each of them collaborates with staff in their buildings to support all tiers of intervention for students. They work with students who are performing below grade level in mathematics. They have worked and are working to fine-tune the SRBI process for math within their individual buildings, as well as across the district, in order to create a coherent system. They are critical members of their building's instructional leadership teams. They provide professional development both in their buildings and district-wide. And our elementary team is working closely as members and in support of teachers on the committee for pilot and adoption of a new primary math instructional resource for K-6 mathematics. They are continuously learning and growing in their own practice, participating in professional development for content and coaching-related topics, all in an effort to improve classroom instruction and student outcomes. I am so pleased to introduce math interventionists Melissa Johnston from Highcrest and Melissa Morello from SDMS to share about the work that they're doing to provide targeted small group interventions.
Hi, I'm Melissa Johnston. I'm at Highcrest. Prior to the 2021-2022 school year, math intervention was provided by tutors in K-8, and at the elementary level, the content curriculum specialists supported Tier 3 plans across the 2 schools that they worked with. Despite the incredible hard work of our curriculum specialists, being in charge of curriculum and intervention across 2 buildings was a big task and a very heavy lift. Now, with a full-time math interventionist in each building, we're able to provide more consistent, targeted, intensive support using scientifically research-based interventions for our students. Students work on building understanding in their foundational skills that are needed to be able to access grade-level curriculum. As an elementary math intervention team, we've had weekly collaboration meetings to learn our roles and ensure consistency across all elementary schools. Last year as a team, we spent a great deal of time researching and piloting tools to screen students for specific learning gaps to aid in creating action plans to meet each student's specific needs. Students in Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention receive explicit and systematic instruction that's designed to target very specific gaps in their conceptual understanding, number sense, and procedural fluency with frequent progress monitoring. We incorporate hands-on learning with visual tools and models. Students meet with the interventionist or tutor in small groups or one-to-one for 3 to 5 sessions per week, depending on their specific needs. As math interventionists, we oversee and participate in the development and implementation of the intervention plans for all students in Tiers 2 and 3. In this aspect of our role, we currently have a direct impact on the learning and growth of around 170 students district-wide for our first year, and already 140 students this year across the district.
In the middle school, last year's initiatives were twofold: provide coaching to teachers on the in-class intervention process, as well as build a middle school math intervention program from scratch. In weekly coaching sessions, teachers were given professional developments on analyzing data, identifying students in need of small group instruction, creating lessons and tools for those small groups, and writing SMART goals for students not making growth in the classroom. Additionally, I would consult with teachers during and outside of the designated professional development time to determine next steps to move a student through the intervention process. In conjunction with coaching, I created the middle school math intervention program based off the elementary intervention model. I started by continuing services for students that were already identified as needing support. Students were provided explicit instruction in their targeted goals 2 to 5 times a week, as Melissa said, depending on their needs, using a concrete, representational, and abstract model to strengthen their mathematical reasoning. Using the same entrance criteria as the elementary school, universal screening data and teacher feedback provided a pathway to enter new students into the program. Although it was only year 1, or year 0 of the program, as I like to call it, we were still able to make great progress with our students. We formally serviced 29 students. Of those students, 17 students met the growth criteria to be exited from the program. And while those numbers don't include the number of students offered informal support, this year, halfway through the 2022-2023 school year, we have already serviced 27 students in intensive pull-out intervention alone, and will significantly increase our servicing numbers in the next intervention cycle. And while these numbers might tell you one story, I'd like to share with you a story of a student who was identified last year as a 7th grader in need of intervention services. Their baseline assessment indicated they didn't have mastery of their multiplication facts, making 7th grade skills such as creating equivalent fractions, performing operations with fractions and decimals, an impossible feat. They were failing their math class despite their best efforts and that of their teacher. Within 8 weeks of the program, the student had demonstrated growth in their math skills as well as their confidence. And this year, they have met the criteria to exit math intervention services and now maintain a B average in their math class, indicating that they're able to access grade level curriculum. Those numbers I shared with you aren't just bodies in a classroom. They're representative of students that are growing as mathematicians. The math intervention program is integral to supporting students and filling gaps in learning so that students can access the grade level standards.
Hi there. So as math interventionists, we have a singular focus: math. We focus on math instruction, math tools, student outcomes in math, math standards, best practices in math, math all day long. This focus drives us to engage in professional learning to build our knowledge so that we can help teachers. This is so important at the elementary level. According to the 2018 National Survey of Science and Math Education, about 80% of high school math teachers and 50% of high school middle school math teachers have a degree in math. Conversely, only 3% of elementary teachers have a degree in math or math education. And their time, elementary teachers, is also split between 5 other subject areas. It's kind of hard to become an expert without some help. Our knowledge as math interventionists builds their knowledge, which impacts all of our students. With our singular focus on math, math interventionists are able to scale our impact on teacher practice and student outcomes in a variety of ways. First, in our elementary schools, we push into classrooms during math instruction to provide support to students and to provide coaching to teachers. One way we collaborate with teachers is around targeted instruction during math workshop. We work with teachers to analyze performance data of students, determine how to group students appropriately for targeted instruction, and how to plan for those groups. As we actively use the learning progressions to target our intervention students and establish goals, we are able to teach teachers how to teach the skills from prior grades that students might be lacking to support the learning that they're doing in the classroom. As students receive the support they need, we find that they are more successful, and that builds their confidence and thankfully lessens their anxiety about math. Another way that we support teachers is by providing insight and coaching with regard to best practices during their math block. This includes building a math workshop structure within the math block and implementing practices that build students' math proficiency, such as the work we are doing around a great book called Building Thinking Classrooms. There are 14 practices involved in the Building Thinking Classrooms process, and we are helping teachers to implement those in ways that impact students. We see this in partner work and targeted small group work alike. Our initial work supporting teachers as they implement Building Thinking Classroom teaching practices has led to major transformations in math, not only for the students, but for the teachers who teach, who say that teaching math has not been this exciting in years. Implementation of Building Thinking Classrooms has led to students actively engaging in math activities. They're building their math vocabulary, they're actively engaging in discourse, and they are coaching each other. The work we are doing has a low floor entry point and a high ceiling for engagement. This allows for greater growth through peer conversations and guided questioning from teachers. We are working to make math an active learning environment where there's energy and excitement. And while students are learning new concepts, they're not even aware they're learning. And at the same time, they're able to demonstrate their knowledge. The 5 elementary math interventionists are also supporting the math pilot, as Dawn mentioned, in each of our buildings. We each push into pilot classrooms to partner with the pilot teachers, ensuring that we are using each piloted resource in the way that best serves the students. We have time to dig in a way that some people may not. And this way we have firsthand knowledge and experience with each of the resources that are being piloted. We engage with the students, we gather their feedback about what math is like and about the resource, and we provide support to students as they adapt to each different stage of the pilot, because things change. As each resource is different, we help the teachers navigate the tools and the resource components, plan upcoming lessons, analyze data, and deliver cohesive instruction. Our work in this area is critical because it supports the work we do as members of the Elementary Math Adoption Committee. Looking forward, we know that this work will be essential to our ongoing support of our students and teachers when we adopt this new math resource and roll it out K-6 across the district. In addition, we are working to impact overall math achievement in our buildings through a variety of activities. We call it mathematizing our buildings. The students see us as the math teacher, and we build relationships to build math engagement. We present at staff meetings, we collaborate with building work teams, we provide professional development, and we work to build a math culture in our buildings in lots of ways. For example, we've created things like math hallways, interactive math bulletin boards, math word walls, all for students to see as they walk down the halls. At Charles Wright, students from all grade levels stop me in the hallway and ask, "Mrs. Mahoney, when will the new math board be up? I can't wait to do it." Never have I heard a kid excited about going down the hallway to do math. It's actually pretty cool. Each of the math interventionists has shared multiple stories where students have sought them out to show off some great new math thing that they've learned. The other morning, while I was on bus duty, a second grader approached me and said, "Mrs. Mahoney, look, look," and she reached into her pocket and she pulled out a piece of paper, second grader, and it said 10 times 10 times 10 equals 1,000. And I was pretty blown away. I'm like, she's a second grader, this is amazing. And when I asked her how she knew that, I was all excited. She said, "I figured it out using a calculator." So I was a little bummed out that she hadn't had some deep conceptual epiphany about math over the weekend, especially at the age of 7. I was actually ecstatic inside to see someone at 7 years old so engaged in math, seeking me out to share this great little thing that she had come across, all on her own. You could see her beam with pride, and it just made me so happy. As math interventionists, we work to find ways to elevate the idea in our schools that math is cool, because while math always has a lot of problems, we know it's the only subject that counts, and our work is just beginning.
Good evening. My name is Christina Slayton. I'm the instructional supervisor for secondary curriculum. At the secondary level, our math interventionists have played a similarly important role in supporting work within our math classrooms. Last year at Silas, Deane, math interventionist Melissa Morello, who you just heard from, helped to lead weekly professional learning community meetings in which teachers identified instructional priorities, developed resources, and planned for differentiated small group instruction. During this time, Melissa worked closely with teams of math teachers to identify strategies and materials to support students across a range of proficiency levels. Additionally, we've provided support within math classes at SDMS through the assignment of math tutors to work with small groups of students addressing specific patterns of need. At Wethersfield High School, math interventionist Jen Kumnick has facilitated professional learning opportunities with the math department, including a book study of Building Thinking Classrooms, the book that's also been read among our elementary colleagues. Jen has also provided job-embedded coaching and modeling for teachers within their classrooms, sharing strategies to deepen student engagement and understanding. We look forward to the continued expansion of this work and believe that this component of our interventionist role, which allows them to impact more students than they could through their own direct intervention alone, is critical for elevating outcomes among all of our students.
So it's not uncommon for it to take some time to see improvement and achievement as a result of changes that are made. Since adding the certified math interventionists, the percentage of students meeting their individual growth targets on high-stakes SBAC math assessments already shows an increase. As we shared in October, coming out of the pandemic, the state trends indicated that students in the middle grades can be a year or more behind in math. Over the last year and a half, we have worked to build and refine the intervention model at SDMS to best meet the needs of our students as evidenced by performance data. Whereas last year, the model saw SDMS math interventionists providing intervention while also supporting teachers' classroom instruction, the work of our math interventionist has shifted this year to focus on direct student support. We continue to work with our new building administrators to strengthen this model in response to student learning needs.
So as I mentioned, you can see the power of our teacher leaders working within our classrooms, focusing on math. So I'm going to take you back a couple years when we were returning to school, partial, maybe full-time. We were all wearing masks. We had toilet paper at that time, but we had other supply chain issues. And part of our federal funding, but also state, right? ESSER funds were available with certain categories or buckets of spending focused on COVID, right? Mitigating the effects of COVID. So part of our ESSER funds were appropriately funneled towards hiring 7 full-time math interventionists. We saw early within our student achievement data that math was taking the greatest hit. as far as academic outcomes from all our remote learning and distance learning that we've had. So we made an investment through ESSER for 3 years for math interventionists, and you can see the power of their work, the improvement on student achievement, their laser-like focus on our district priorities and improving outcomes for students. That is clear in every building, the phenomenal impact they have had. This is the second year of the 3-year grant. So my ask is, how do we move these important critical positions for student achievement into our district fund budget over the next 2 years to ensure that we can continue the work of our math interventionists in each building? Bottom line, what we heard today and we've seen from our early data and fully expect to see as our data goes on, that we've improved outcomes and achievement, especially with our students in high needs. When we talk about our students that need the most intervention, our early data is very strong around growth of our high need students and all students. So it's, from a curriculum lens and a student achievement lens, one of our priorities to ensure and find ways to absorb these in the budget moving forward. And so why do we do that? Why do we focus? Our end game is about our vision of our graduate. Our vision of graduate is for our students to walk across the stage to graduation, to be effective communicators, problem solvers, and collaborators. You heard through the math presentation today, mathematics involve those 3 skills, and the teaching of improving our outcomes for our students and improving high-quality instruction in our classrooms is critical to their role to help ensure that all students meet our expectations of the vision of the graduate. So, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Stoley. Can we go back to the growth metrics page?
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, with all the green arrows?
All the up arrows, which is great. 2 questions. I'm going to kind of answer my own question, I think, but
Yeah.
2019 to 2022, we didn't just look at the students who were on both in school for both those years, correct? We didn't exclude, filter it out?
No, most of our students were tested in school. We had very small numbers of students that tested remotely, but when you're talking about hybrid, kids that were in school
No,
or
but they're
out
not
school.
cohort data, is I guess what I'm asking, correct?
No, it's not cohort data.
Thank you. But
No.
the 2022 would be students who spent about a year and a half in our hybrid / out of school for the last 3 months.
Correct.
So that's very impressive to see that increase.
Yeah, when we get our students back in, have high-quality instruction, targeted support. Again, we are still seeing the effects of what I like to call interrupted learning, right? Interrupted through our chronic attendance data you've seen, remote learning, hybrid. When we get our students in front of us and we have high-quality instruction, our teachers make a difference and we see huge growth. But we all know what we've learned through COVID, and we're still mitigating those learning gaps, right? Those different things, both academically, but social, emotionally, maturity. I was just observing a high school classroom Monday, and, just maturity level. We are still feeling the effects of this COVID.
Thank you. Any other board members with questions or comments? Ms. Granato.
First of all, I love the presentation. That was excellent. And Mrs. Mahoney, I'm always going to remember your comment. That was great. A couple things. We talked about SRBI is involved with all this, or, is they covered there. And I didn't see where Tier 1 kids went. So they would go to an individual to work one-on-one? Is that how they would work it? Because I saw 2 and 3.
Tier 1 would be your classroom. So all students get Tier 1. So Tier 1 would be classroom curriculum and support.
That's okay, and then Tier 2 and 3 are covered? Yeah. Okay. SRBI can still confuse all of us.
Oh,
Tier 1 is everybody.
Yes.
Everybody gets Tier 1.
That's the bottom row, right?
Their work in Tier 1. And their work in Tier 1 is supporting the capacity of teachers, specifically in the area of math, right? We know from our data that we have a large percentage of our students who are not meeting goal in mathematics across the board, right? That indicates that our root issue lies in our Tier 1 instruction at the elementary level. So we need to improve that in order to improve outcomes for all students, right? You can't small group it for 53% of your kids, right?
Oh, gotcha.
So their work in the Tier 1 classroom is directly impacting all students.
Okay.
That's huge leverage for student outcomes.
Good. Okay, I got it now. Thank you. Can you tell me what program we're doing to pilot?
So we are on our second pilot right now.
Okay.
Each grade level has piloted illustrative mathematics already, and now they are piloting iReady mathematics. iReady Classroom Mathematics is the name of the program.
Okay, and we're going to get a lot of feedback from you when we do this. Good.
We are. We just collected some feedback from the teachers and from the parents. We'll poll the kids after they're done with both to kind of get their feel. Some teachers did reach out to students and say, hey, what do you think about this compared to Go Math? Which I don't think is fair because they don't have that option. It's going away.
Go Math is gone, right?
But they said, nope, this was way better. They're loving it.
Good. And my last one is a comment. I love hearing the word coaching because that's when we're a great team. I really think when we're all working together, people helping each other, learning together, and then we work with the kids, it all works. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Is the pilot K6 or K8?
It is K6.
K6, okay, just curious. Anyone else? Mr. Riley?
I think it's a great program, so thank you all. I like the fact that it's collaborative, that the teachers are also learning as well, so that's very important. Hopefully this program will continue, and I like the fact that you gave some specific examples. I mean, it's great to see the charts, but when you say one person was struggling now, that a B student, that's something that you can see. So thank you for that. And I'm an accountant, so I'm in favor of math just in general. So thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Emmett.
Yeah, just to Dee Dee's point about the mathematization of the schools. I am fortunate to be able to visit all of our schools in my travels and my work as superintendent. And I know I had the opportunity to sit in at Charles Wright during the pilot for illustrative, and it was one of those things. I was walking down the hallway and Mrs. Sullivan asked if I had a few minutes, and 60 minutes later I was completely wowed by what I saw. Just yesterday, after the conclusion of the DARE graduation, I was walking the halls and I came upon 3 young ladies in 4th grade in Mrs. Tashner's class working on a math problem on the wall in the hall. And to have them explain the process of how they went through solving the problem. And they utilized reading, they utilized writing, they utilized critical thinking, they utilized collaboration, they utilized math skills. It was really, really nice to see. So, to your point with the mathematization, I see it loud and clear. And I love the fact that we're piloting these programs, we're getting the feedback both from our professionals in the classroom as well as our students to make an informed decision about what the next program will look like for the Wethersfield Public Schools. So I just want to say thank you to all of our math interventionists. Greatly appreciate your work, and it is making a difference. There's no doubt.
So I just really quickly want to point out that the 2 classrooms that Mr. Emmett just compared, one is a pilot classroom and the other one's not. The other one, and the reason I bring it up, the reason I point it out and highlight it is because Mrs. Mahoney talked about this work around professional development with this Building Thinking Classrooms resource, and the high school team is reading it and looking at it. The work that you saw those kids doing is the work that came out of the professional development that we've done around building thinking classrooms, building kids' capacity to have mathematical conversations and really deeply think about a task and struggle with things a little bit and come out the other side with lots of different answers. So it's really exciting to hear that you're seeing great things in pilot classrooms, but what's amazing is that you're also seeing it just in the professional development coaching work that these professionals are doing on a daily basis with non-pilot teachers. So it's not about whatever math program we pick is going to be fine. The most important thing is that we are building the capacity of our teachers and our students through professional learning and through coaching with these people.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Stoley. Thank you guys for coming out on this Tuesday night
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
and joining us. You're not
No.
using that, okay. We'll give him a minute to put up the board. Moving on to long-range building plan update, Mr. Emmett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Carey. Wanted to take this opportunity to build upon our most recent Facilities and Maintenance Subcommittee meeting, which was held last Wednesday at the Stillman Building, to engage in a discussion this evening about some of the work we're doing now following the failure of the referendum back in November. So I said it last week, I'll certainly say it again publicly. The parent response we've had on the backside of the referendum has been overwhelming. It is great to see that our parent community is engaged in the process moving forward. We've had representation from each school. I think it's important as we look at the building plan moving forward, the questions abound. How do we publicize this moving forward? Where do we go? What schools do we prioritize? It was clear in the conversation we've had, and we've had a parent meeting over at Highcrest back in early December, and then last week's meeting at the Stillman Building, is that Charles Wright, certainly as a community, wants to remain a school. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. I think from a perspective of finance, as you know, we are completed with regard to the Colliers Group. We have gone through 3 phases of the work. I do have a meeting coming up with Chuck Warrington this Thursday at 11 a.m. along with Pat Gallagher to talk about what potential next steps we have. I think the other thing I brought forward at last Wednesday's meeting, which Chuck Warrington confirmed is an important step forward, is I believe that we need to expand the committee outside of simply the Facilities and Maintenance Committee. We clearly have parents that are engaged in the process. I think we need to have a parent representative from each school so that we can get the information out to them moving forward. And I also think it's important that we involve a liaison of town council. What was really compelling to me, the meeting we had back in early December at Highcrest, we had 5 members of town council, including the mayor, attend that meeting. So it is clear that the stakeholders want to be heard and want to be part of the process moving forward. I think it's also important to understand too, you know, we had a grant application that was submitted, and we have 2 schools that were in the queue. So some of the questions that come forward: do we move forward with doing one build new? Do we build a 2 new? Do we include Charles Wright? Do we engage an architect? Do we explore the cost of engaging an architect? From a perspective of finances right now, according to Mr. Kazaka, in the 2% reserve fund, there's approximately $168,000 remaining in the 2% reserve. And that 2% reserve is funding that the Board of Education has returned to the town over previous budget years when we finished under budget. So I can tell you this past year, we finished at 0. So we did not have anything go into that 2% reserve. But we do have some funding to be able to move forward. I also want to make sure, from a perspective of what potential costs are, we need to look and see whether or not we have to go back out to bid. There are rules with regard to that. As you may recall, we actually went out to bid back in 2018. So we want to make sure that we follow all bidding rules as well. So it's something we're going to have to look at. The other piece I think that it's important to speak about too, I know it was talked about last week. One of the factors we talked about was safety and security, and I'm pleased to see one of our parents that was at the meeting last week is in attendance this evening. You know, after Newtown occurred, one of the things that we felt was very necessary here in this district was to fortify the buildings we have. So we have taken multiple steps over the course of the past 10 years to do a variety of upgrades. You'll see a gentleman sitting in the back in the audience, Mr. Michael Barabal, our Director of Security. Prior to Newtown, that position did not even exist. So in addition to that, we've added an additional SRO at the middle school level. We've done a variety of upgrades in buildings. As you may know from your tours of buildings in the past, most of our buildings at the elementary level were an open classroom design. So we had a lot of collapsible walls. We had collapsible walls at Hanmer, we had collapsible walls at Highcrest. And one of the things we did is we went in and we fortified those walls so that they cannot collapse and be pushed apart. We upgraded to window film, shatter-resistant window film on all of our buildings. So any intruder trying to get in will not be able to simply break the glass and get in. It buys us time. We have camera systems across our district, so every single one of our buildings has a camera system that we can get either through Stillman Building or also over at the police department. We constantly look to upgrade those cameras. So, for example, at the high school, we've already started to upgrade some of those, even though they're newer. We are repurposing the ones from the high school over to the middle school. And then we'll look to get additional cameras at the elementary level as well. We've upgraded our exterior doors. That was another one of the things that we saw as a real weakness. We've also fortified hallway areas. For example, at Hanmer, the hallway going to the primary wing used to be all glass from ground to ceiling. We actually fortified that, took the windows out and created a brick walkway and decreased the number of entrances on that backside. So it's one of those things that we continue to work at. I think moving forward with regard to a long-range building plan, one of the things we look at is we look at the design. So one of the things with safety and security, we look at traffic flow. So I will be the first to tell you the traffic flow over at Hanmer is a bit of a challenge. The traffic flow over at Charles Wright is a major challenge. So how would a design of a new building or a renovation be able to help us solve those long-standing issues? I think the other piece, too, moving forward in terms of safety and security, we have designs that date back to 1952. That's the oldest building we have. That's Emerson Williams Elementary School. And then the remaining buildings were built in the late 60s or early 70s. So one of the things we look at when we look at design is how do we design buildings that are the safest possible? How do we design buildings that are most efficient as well? So I think, moving forward at this point in time, I know that this board did yeoman's work of addressing multiple different plans over the course of time. We've been at this for a long time. And I think we'd be remiss if we did not move forward with a plan. We need to do something with our buildings. So at this point in time, I would turn it over to questions. I know all of you from the meeting last week had a lot to say and a lot of feedback. So at this point in time, we'd love to hear questions or comments and perspectives.
Mr. Lacavoli.
Thank you, Chuck. So I wasn't here. I'm not newly elected, but I'm newer than most. I wasn't really here when this whole project began. I thought the work that Colliers did was pretty good from what I was able to see. I thought they provided a good service. They provided a lot of information. I was wondering if we intend to retain them or a group like them moving forward. And I was also wondering if we choose not to, who will be or will we have an intermediary between the district, the board, and the state? Because they seem to serve as the liaison for questions concerning reimbursements, bonding, stuff like that. So I was just wondering those questions.
Yeah, great questions, Matt. And as I said, with regard to the bidding process and knowing how much further work would cost, we need to get that information from Colliers first and foremost. I think it is absolutely critical to have an owner's rep as part of the process. These guys know their stuff from the space standards. They know the educational specifications. They work directly with the state with regard to reimbursement. They know the design process. I mean, this is a major investment moving forward, and I think it's critically important that you have that level of support. From a perspective of the SLAM Collaborative and the work that Pat Gallagher's done, we did the enrollment study. That enrollment study is a requirement as part of a grant application. They took a tremendous amount of demographic data, and honestly, the data that we've been presented and the actual predictions that they have come out with have been spot on with what we've actually had in terms of enrollment. So I certainly think it's important to engage professionals with regard to this process. Again, I just want to make sure that we follow the process to a T.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Cassio?
Yes, Michael, thank you for the update with regards to what's in the 2% reserve fund. I think
My
that's
pleasure.
imperative for all of us to find out. The next meeting will be exactly when you have on Thursday to find out what Collier is going to go with. Because we could be up here with all our excitement and not have a plan to move forward. So those are two things that I'm really thrilled about. Also, I'm happy that you gave the update on the safety of our buildings and what we've done since, Newtown. Because a lot of parents are new in the district, and there's a lot of things that we can't tell the community what we've done for our own safety within our schools. So I hope families understand that. There's a lot of safety in the buildings that board members don't even know about. So I think that's a real positive situation. We have a pulse, we have our fingers on it, we have our security director, we have cameras, but the safest building, if someone wants to get in it, they're going to do it. So that's something that, unfortunately, our country and world we live in. But I'm excited to hear that we have a great group of parents. I'm happy to hear that we're looking at all 5 elementary schools to find out exactly where we're going to be going with them. But, I think that we have a lot of good news, a lot of good things going forward. But we do need the support of a larger committee. And we do need a town rep. We do have a town rep. We did have a town rep, Sally Katz, on the committee that was supposed to report back to the town council. So, we learn from our mistakes, and we don't let them park in our brain, and we move forward on what we've learned from our mishaps. But I don't want to think of it as a mishap. I want to think of it as a learning experience, because the board did put a lot of hours into it, and we did believe that we did put a good plan forward within the district. And we do have a good plan moving forward. We have the ability in the program to build new of Highcrest and Hamner, so that's already out there. And now we just have to look at our other 3 schools and where we're going to go with the cost estimate on them. So once we find out what Collier is going to do, and to Matt's question regarding that group, Bobby and I have worked with them since the beginning, and we did review and interview other groups. And when you do that, you go into the program looking at what fits our school district, what's the personality of our needs in our district. And they've worked with many school districts, just like Wethersfield. So they had a lot of common ground for our school district and our ability to move forward. They're easy to talk to, easy to reach. And I was happy that they were at a meeting on January 4th. That was a real positive, that they're concerned for us. So unless we win the Mega Millions,
Got my tickets ready.
and if I do, I will donate something.
Cassio Elementary School.
You can put that in the minutes. But we have to get behind it. And as I said before, it's about Wethersfield. It's not the town. It's not the police. It's not the fire. It's not the library. It's what's good for our school and for the community. So, and the positive thing, as you saw today with our presentation, is that we do have excellent teachers in our district. So,
Got the greatest kids, too.
yep.
Oh, sorry, John, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. So, Amanda?
I just wanted to say that I wholeheartedly agree that we need to expand the group to involve the parents and our government, because they also have to be behind any decision that we make, because the numbers that we are going to be
giving out are going to be substantial. And so we want them to be a part of it so they can actually feel like they are involved in the process. And then I also wanted to thank the board for appreciating and understanding the Charles Wright community and how much they would like to remain the community that they are. So thank you.
Ms. Granato.
Well, I just am excited that we are moving forward. Democracy is messy, and just a lot of times you have to learn from what you've done and move forward, and that's what we're doing. But I love the energy of the town now towards our schools. I think that's most important. And as we move forward, I've said it a couple times, our children deserve these buildings. They're going into a world, I've said this 100 times, that we can't even imagine, and we need them to be ready for it. That's our job as the adults this time. So I'm very excited we're moving forward. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure it out as an entire community, and I'm so glad to see so many people standing behind it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Riley. I'll get it right.
Yes, I'd like to echo some of those same thoughts. I'm glad that, we're coming together and getting more viewpoints. I think in the 5 years that this process has gone, and I think the price tag for the same plan has gone up almost a third. And so we need to address it, and we need to address it now. And I think another component is something that I was thinking of when I joined the board, and that's how did our schools, how did all of them get to this particular point? And I think, Mike, maybe you could just talk briefly about the maintenance plan that you've been working on.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting is, with the history here, we have some of our elementary schools that have never been renovated. Webb was, and Webb, built in 1962, was a junior high school. And there's a reason why when we looked at the space standards and we saw, some classrooms of 700 square feet, which is woefully inadequate, it was a junior high school that was fit in to become an elementary school. And I think, as we move forward, get ready to attend the capital improvement meeting, which is coming up on the evening of the 18th. Having a long-range plan is critically important. And let's take our high school for a minute. When you think back, our high school, we are almost at the 10-year mark from when we first started that new construction. Time flies when you're running schools. And, we look at the maintenance and what needs to be done. And one of the things we asked the physical services was to make sure at that high school, we have a maintenance plan moving forward. It is the state-of-the-art building. We need to be able to maintain it. We need to maintain all of our buildings. And, I think with our elementary schools, as I mentioned earlier, those open classroom designs of the 1970s, it's no longer an appropriate design. And what we find, and you'll see it, when we next go over to Charles Wright, which will be the next parent meeting coming up on the 25th of January, that is a building that has been chopped up and broken up into little pieces. And, we'll see the newly refurbished, and thank you very much, Town of Wethersfield, the newly refurbished portables that are about 22, 23 years old. Are we satisfied with having portables still at this point in time? So these are the things that we have to take a look at moving forward. And I think, the idea here also is when we talk about our school buildings, I look at them as our school buildings. They're our schools, where our kids go, where our teachers teach, and where magic happens. But outside of the school day, these buildings are used all the time. It is amazing, from religious groups to dance troops to youth sports to Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts. Our buildings are constantly used. So these are important pieces of the fabric of our community, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that they are the safest, the cleanest, the neatest, and the most up-to-date.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
wanna,
Yep, Mr. Cassio.
Bring back to the table from our takeaways. One of the, I think, key elements behind motivating any of our buildings is the fact that the town needs to come up with a facilities plan for each one of our buildings. I think, we did have it as a Board of Ed, But, you know, not that we're not proud of our buildings, but the town needs to keep record of what's happening in our school buildings now. In the past, the town took from the doors to the street. The Board of Ed took from the interior door to the classrooms. It's now the town has everything. So we have to get through that. The other thing, if you look at the timeline, if this referendum passed, or we go forward in 6 months or a year from now with another referendum, with all the time that goes on, we're hopeful that we'll have a shovel in the ground in 2 years. So it's not something that is going to happen in a week or 6 months. So I think people had a misunderstanding that we were going to shut down and not operate. So just keep in mind, if looking down the road, this is a project that's going to be long-term over time. So.
Right, and the last phase would have been finished in 10 years.
Yep, looking about 2032, 2033.
Yes, Mr.
Just one
Donato.
more question, because we were just on this. If people in town have complaints about the buildings, the actual structural care of the buildings, who can they go to?
I think reaching out to the physical services director, Sally Katz, would be certainly appropriate. Obviously, me as well. Send me an email if there's something. And actually, I have to say, last week's Facilities and Maintenance Committee, when we finished up, I had a conversation with a parent who saw some things over at the high school when she was walking on the track.
Actually, that's what I was remembering,
Yeah,
yes.
well, and I followed up, already met with the head custodian from the high school on Friday, and meeting with the custodial maintenance supervisor for our weekly meeting tomorrow at 8. So I'll be
Okay.
bringing those issues forward.
So they could still come to us, and we will
Absolutely.
then move it along the proper avenues?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Emmett.
Thank you.
Moving on to meetings held, the CREC Council meeting 12/21/22. Was that canceled? Bobby?
Yes, that
Yes,
was,
that was
yep.
canceled. Thank you. Facilities and Maintenance Committee, Mr. Cassio, 1/4/23.
I think we just discussed it.
Yes, no, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we
Okay.
If I could just add, Mr. Cassio, I do want to make sure the public is aware, I did mention it at the meeting last week, that with regard to HVAC, the contractor that was brought in by the town to do an audit of both lighting and energy has completed that work. They did the lighting audit of each of our buildings first at the beginning of December, and then over the course of the holiday break, they went into each of the buildings and did assessments of all the HVAC systems. We do anticipate that we'll be getting a report from REL, the consultant, sometime in February. When I get that, I'll have it to you, and we'll certainly share it with the public.
Thank you. Wethersfield Early Childhood Collaborative, the WECC meeting was on 1/9/23. Ms. Granato?
Thank you. WECC is Wethersfield's Early Childhood Collaborative, and their mission is that all Wethersfield children birth to 8 are healthy, developmentally successful learners and connected to the community. So our January meeting was held yesterday at the Eleanor Wolf Nature Center, and if you haven't been there, you are in for a treat of a hidden gem of Wethersfield. Pamela Malojo, the director and educator for the center, spoke to us of the many creative outdoor and indoor activities related to nature and the animals living at the center. Please check their Facebook page for parent and preschool kids' nature center programs that Pamela leads throughout the year. Jim Welch spoke of PEP beginning the new session on Thursday, January 26th. Recruiting and applications are available on the WECC website, and many child care providers had supplies delivered by Jim and Kim during December, and the WECC leaders also worked with Santa's Breakfast, social services toy distribution, Friday's Cafe at Children and Family Aid in Danbury, Holidays on Main. They worked at the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood and Connecticut Children's Collective Parent Cabinet Parent Ambassador meeting, and they also attended the Governor's Breakfast. WECC received $5,000 from the Fund for Greater Hartford to be used to support and grow our Parent Ambassador Initiative. And Kim and Jim are already planning for a transition to kindergarten program and our playground dates for next year. There was a discussion of the future ways to support the evolution of a family resource center and preschool for all the children in town. So please visit the WECC website for all these accomplishments and activities for our youngest citizens and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Granato. Moving on to meetings scheduled. The Student Programs and Service Committee meets on 1/17/2023 at 6 p.m., the CREC Council meeting on 1/18/2023 at 11:30 a.m., and the Finance and Operations Committee meeting on 1/24/23 at 6 p.m. Unfinished business, there is none. Public comment. Anyone in the public wishing to make comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Hello, all. I'm Doug Schill. Address is 323 Main Street. I wanted to thank you for making it clear that we're all welcome to come to the facilities meeting. That was really helpful to learn a little bit more about the process and what's going on. I'm relatively new to the town, and like many, would like to see new and improved schools for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I also just was at a loss at how little information there was about the referendum leading up to it, and it seemed how little folks knew about about all the work that you guys have done over the last many years to prepare for it. So I think that's my biggest concern going forward. It is wonderful that there is a large group of parents involved, me being one of them, but we still have to figure out how to get this information out more broadly so other community members who do take advantage of the schools in a whole variety of ways, as mentioned, understand the value of this investment and frankly the need for it in town. So I look forward to the meeting on 125, and I hope that we can get that word out as however we can, so more folks are involved, and I look forward to each of you continuing to work aggressively to get us to a new, to new and improved schools for our kids and for our community more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public wishing to make comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Katie Kyle. I live at 16 Wright Road, Wright as in Charles Wright. I live right around the corner, so I'm well aware of the traffic flow challenges, but just want to say I really, really appreciate all the sentiments that everyone involved in this project has been noticing, that Charles Wright is super important to the town. We have the opportunity to choose anywhere in the town or anywhere outside of the town, but having that Charles Wright walkable community within an affordable housing community is super, super important. There's so much engagement that we get by just being able to walk up to other parents while we're going to drop off or pick up our children, and that idea of having our children grow up in an area where we know we can have them walk to each other's houses is so rare to find. And so really love that we're going back at it again. I really was very torn about the referendum because I know they do need new schools. There's a lot of challenges, and one of the things I thought was perfect for this meeting particularly was the math interventions and them talking, and I think the last slide said communication, problem solving, and collaboration, and that's what I hope that we can all do moving forward. One thing that I felt, Mr. Casio, at the meeting last week, I think you did a really great effort with calling out, like, I don't want to hear about the enrollment studies anymore. Very important work was obviously done for a long, long time, and that has not gone unappreciated. But I feel like so much of the conversations are still looking at back. What did you do? Trying to prove what you did. We know there's challenges, and I hope this new expanded role, we can have some sort of checking sheet, so everybody going in knows the challenges that you were up against, and moving forward from there. So that's what I'm a little bit fearful about the meeting on the 125. It's just going to be a lot of the big room with a lot of people and talking about the spreadsheet and the size of Charles Wright and all the same things. So really, if we can, I'll be looking forward to see what you come up with for that meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to board comment. Anyone in the board wishing to make comment? Mr. Roberts.
I attended the WSPC meeting on January 5th at Wethersfield School Parent Committee, and there was a wonderful presentation by Sally Distoli and Dawn Campbell on how we teach reading in Wethersfield. There had been many questions about of how we do it, and it came down to a balanced program versus scientific-based. And they dispelled some myths that they believed some people have, and they are going to take the show on the road and go to all of the PTO meetings to explain how things are done. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I think parents hopefully will get from this is that you can talk curriculum, you can talk instruction and materials, but the biggest driver in education of any kind is the student, the individual student, and what their needs are. And that is our focus, is to make everyone successful, and using whatever materials, whatever instructional practices are best.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Cassio.
Yep, I just for some clarification through the superintendent. So the board tonight discussed the long-range building plan, and you're going to be meeting with Collier on Thursday of this week, and then we come to the table again at our board meeting on the 24th of January. What at that point does this board have to reflect on? What do we, because on the 25th, we go to Charles Wright. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we're not, you know, we have another positive impression and positive movement. So do we have to call a facilities meeting before our board meeting, after you meet with Collier, to try to figure out what direction this board is going to go in? You know, I just want to, you know, I just want to find out what we're going to do.
So I see, John, good question. I see next steps being getting the cost estimate from Collier's to see what that cost estimate is, to see if it meets bidding requirements, if we'd have to go out to bid. In the event that we'd have to go out to bid, then obviously that's going to slow things down. And we're going to have to go out and do the process, develop the RFP, and go out and go forward that way. I think, you know, again, I want to say too, the meeting on the 25th, that's one of our parent meetings. It's a parent group meeting. I am taking care of the building use form, so it has been requested already. So that agenda will be set by our parents. I do know, on speaking with some of our Charles Wright parents, there will be a tour of the building prior to the scope of the meeting. So I will have information for you in this Friday's update. In the event that we are able to move forward with Collier's and their cost estimate does not exceed the threshold to go out to bid, I would still look to bring that before you on the 24th of January. In the event that we had to go out to bid, that too would come before you for discussion and action prior to us doing any type of an RFP.
Okay, so I guess the question then, do we look at forming the expanded committee prior to the Charles Wright meeting, or do we wait until after the Charles Wright meeting?
The Charles Wright meeting has nothing to do with us. That's my problem. So we're not going to work around a
Well,
meeting that we have
I
nothing to do with.
understand that, but I just want to make sure, as a board, we meet on the 24th. So are we going to direct the superintendent to help form the committee?
Yeah, we've already been discussing it, so it's already in the process.
All right.
So-
Because, you know, quite honestly, I love going out at night, but I don't need to go out to a meeting at Charles Wright School to hear the same things I already know. That's all.
Correct, and we didn't put the meeting out there, though, so we didn't make that meeting.
I understand that, but as an elected official, and the responsibility that I take, I just want to make sure that, we're not doing a,
You're also looking for a path forward.
yeah.
We don't want to like rehash, because again,
Right.
just like the other community members have said, we don't want to look in the past. We want to go forward. We want to make a decision. What are we doing? Are we going all 5 schools? Are we doing, what are we doing? Because we have to make these decisions. We should really make these decisions fairly quickly if we want to put this on the path to get it done.
So we shouldn't really be having a discussion like this at board comment, so we're going to end that part of it and stick to board comment. It's not a discussion. We had that in the agenda and we moved on. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you.